All right, let's jump right into this explainer and completely demystify the core concepts of monitoring and evaluation. Look, if you work in project management or community interventions, you know these terms are thrown around constantly, right? Usually like right before a massive donor report is due. But today, we're going to break down exactly how they work together to track, guide, and ultimately judge the success of any project. We're going to take these concepts off the spreadsheet and see how they actually function in the real world.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the journey and destination, look at the monitoring routine, talk about turning monitoring into action, dive into evaluation's deeper look, go over the 6 OECD-DAC criteria, and finally wrap up with asking better evaluation questions. Let's get to it.
Section 1. The journey and destination. To cleanly separate these two concepts, I want you to think of a mountain climb. They're so often lumped together as M&E, but they serve completely different purposes. Monitoring is that steady routine running through a project. It literally watches the journey. It's the pulse check happening while you're actively on the move. Evaluation, on the other hand, is that deeper look back that asks the much harder questions. It judges the destination. Once you've got your indicators and a way to collect data, you have to put both of these to work. So let's start with the journey.
Section 2. Monitoring, the ground-level routine.
Let's zoom in on the dirt and look at monitoring on the ground. The absolutely crucial thing to remember here is that monitoring is a regular habit. It's what transforms mere record-keeping into a highly responsive system. Picture a maternal health project running across several clinics. First, you hold the sessions. Second, every single month, a field officer records antenatal attendance and supply deliveries into a mobile data collection app, like Kobo Toolbox. Now, on its own, that's just numbers in a phone, right? But the magic happens next. You compare those numbers against your targets and flag the gaps. If attendance suddenly drops in 2 clinics, this orderly routine catches it in good time. That means you can find out why and actually respond before it's too late.
But to keep that routine from falling apart, you really need a monitoring plan. By answering a few specific, practical questions for every single indicator in your log frame, you create a safety net. You need to know what data is needed, what's the tool, how often, who collects it, and where does it go. When you actually write these answers down, like assigning the field officer to collect monthly clinic register data for the M&E officer to review, your monitoring stops relying on human memory and good intentions. It becomes a reliable, structured system that you can count on.
Section 3. Turning monitoring into action.
Look, having a neat table is great, but this is exactly where so much monitoring effort is completely wasted. Think about it. Data that goes into a report that no one ever reads has changed absolutely nothing in the real world. Nothing. The entire purpose of monitoring is the decision that allows you to make. A monitoring system that never changes a single decision has completely failed, no matter how beautiful its spreadsheets are.
So, what does this all mean? It means your team has to ask one essential question. Given what this is telling us, what should we do differently? You need to hold short, regular review moments where the team actually looks at the gathered data together and asks exactly that. This simple question ensures the data actually triggers action and keeps the project on track to, actually help people, rather than just filling a quota.
Section 4. Evaluation. A deeper look back.
Now we step back from that monthly routine to make deeper judgments at specific points in time. We're moving from monitoring the journey to evaluating the destination. And evaluations generally come in a few kinds, grouped by timing. We record the initial situation at the start with a baseline. Partway through, a midline checks our progress and lets us course correct. At the close, an endline measures what ultimately changed. And sometimes we even do an ex post study a year or 2 later just to see if the benefits actually lasted.
The second way we can group evaluations is by their core purpose. A formative evaluation happens during the project to improve it as it runs. Think of it like steering a moving ship. A summative evaluation, however, happens at the very end to judge its overall worth. Basically, it's judging the final voyage.
Section 5. 6 criteria for project evaluation.
When an evaluation asks if a project was actually any good, it needs an agreed-upon set of angles to judge from. Enter the global gold standard, the OECD-DAC criteria. These 6 angles ensure a really comprehensive review. Relevance asks if it met real needs. Coherence checks if it fit with other policies without duplicating work. Effectiveness looks at intended outcomes. Efficiency examines if resources like time and money were used well. Impact looks at the real, long-term difference, including unintended harms. And sustainability asks if the benefits will actually outlive the funding. Let's look a bit closer at a few of these crucial ones.
The big takeaway regarding relevance is making sure you actually addressed a true community need, rather than just delivering what was convenient for your organization. You really have to ask yourself, did this coastal community actually need boreholes, or did your NGO just happen to have a borehole drilling budget? Relevance grounds the entire project in reality.
Next up is effectiveness. When checking this, we aren't just looking at what activities we did or what we taught. We're looking at outcomes. Did the trained farmers actually adopt the new climate-smart practices? It is simply not enough to say you held a training session. Effectiveness demands knowing if the intended behavior actually took root.
Sustainability forces us to look way past the closing date with an intense focus on the future. We absolutely must ask if local structures can survive without NGO funding. Will the local water committee still keep that borehole working in 3 years? If the answer is no, the project's long-term value is severely compromised.
Section 6. Asking better evaluation questions. You know, an evaluation is truly only as good as the questions it sets out to answer. A good evaluation question must be focused, tied to one of our 6 criteria, and answerable with realistic data. A loose, unmeasurable query like, was the project successful, gives you absolutely nothing to work with. But a focused question like, to what extent did trained farmers adopt climate-smart practices and for whom did it work best, gives you a highly precise target. Just a handful of these sharp questions will serve you so much better than a massive list of vague ones.
Ultimately, why do we do all of this? This whole shebang, the monitoring plans on Kobo Toolbox, the OECD-DAC criteria, the carefully crafted evaluation questions, exists solely so we can close the loop. We don't collect data just to satisfy donors. We do it to turn that data into findings, decisions, and most importantly, honest answers for the people we're trying to help. So I'll leave you with this final thought. When you look at your own monitoring and evaluation systems, are you just feeding a spreadsheet, or are you truly building a system of honest accountability for the communities you serve?